Let me start by making a crucial distinction. This isn't a conversation about compassion or empathy. Those are essential traits that nourish human connection and social cohesion. What we're addressing here is something altogether different: niceness. Specifically, the ingrained, almost unconscious habit of prioritizing others' comfort at the cost of your well-being, your time, your boundaries, your biology. That's not kindness. That's a form of self-erasure, and it's quietly eroding your mental clarity, your nervous system balance, and ultimately, your potential. Here's what neuroscience shows us: the brain isn't designed to accommodate everyone's needs. It's engineered for survival, focus, and determined pursuit of meaningful goals. When you default to agreement, constantly saying yes to demands, opinions, or expectations, your brain doesn't view that as admirable. It perceives it as a threat. Habitual people-pleasing spikes your stress hormone, cortisol, disrupts your attention, and sends your nervous system into a chronic state of alert. You're unconsciously teaching your brain that every interaction could be dangerous, because in trying to earn universal approval, your mind interprets rejection as a threat. You aren't here to be accepted by everyone. You're not meant to be an emotional caretaker for those who won't manage their own feelings. You're here to construct something meaningful: your vision, your strength, your truth. That requires boundaries. The brain's capacity for change, neuroplasticity, depends on friction. Growth doesn't emerge from ease. It arises from choosing discomfort that aligns with purpose. Declining what doesn't serve you is a neurological cue that tells your brain this matters more. You're reclaiming authority over your energy and focus. People often ask, is it selfish to put myself first? My answer is, it's selfish to breathe oxygen before trying to rescue someone underwater. Of course not. That's the only way you can help sustainably. When you're overly nice to everyone, you're often betraying your real needs. You suppress your emotions, sidestep essential conflict, dilute your presence, all in the name of peace. But what you're really doing is disappearing. And here's the paradox: the moment you stop over-accommodating and start showing up with honesty and groundedness, your nervous system recalibrates. You sleep better, your thinking sharpens, your focus returns, because your physiology and your behavior finally align. So here's the challenge: stop conflating being nice with being good. Don't trade your values for momentary validation. Become comfortable being misunderstood, even disliked. That discomfort isn't failure. It's the cost of becoming real. This is something most people don't realize until their health suffers. When you keep saying yes to what drains you, when you fake agreement to dodge conflict, when you smile while silencing your instincts, you're triggering stress pathways in your brain, not metaphorically, but literally. Every time you override your true response to please someone, your brain activates the salience network, scanning for rejection, assessing social threat. This heightens cortisol and norepinephrine levels. Your pupils expand, heart rate jumps, digestion stalls. Meanwhile, executive functioning, the part of your brain responsible for clear decision-making and long-term planning, begins to shut down. You're not calm. You're dysregulated. People think niceness makes life smoother. In truth, it trains your brain to expect danger in social situations because it starts associating human interaction with self-abandonment. Over time, that stress loop rewires your mind for anxiety instead of clarity. You wake up drained, scattered, unsure of what matters, not because you're weak, but because your brain's been hijacked by the habit of self-suppression. This isn't a matter of morality. It's a neurological consequence, and it builds physiologically, emotionally, cognitively, the longer you ignore it. The problem: we confuse kindness with niceness, but neurologically, they're distinct. Kindness is intentional. It comes from your prefrontal cortex. Empathy, thoughtful decision-making, and self-leadership. Kindness says, I choose to be generous. It builds relationships from a place of stability. Niceness, by contrast, is an involuntary response driven by fear circuits in the limbic system, especially the amygdala and insula, which respond to perceived social threat. When you're being nice to avoid disapproval or discomfort, you're not acting from power. You're reacting to fear, attempting to preempt someone else's negative emotion. That's why compulsive niceness is dangerous. Repeating this fear-based behavior trains your nervous system to abandon authenticity at the first sign of tension. Eventually, this becomes your default safety strategy. Niceness becomes your armor, but also your cage. You start evaluating choices based on, will they like me? Instead of, does this align with my values? That detour steers you away from purpose, away from growth. Society might applaud your agreeableness, but internally your biology is suffering. Niceness is not connection. It's submission. And the human brain isn't optimized for submission. It's built for adaptive, authentic response. When you remove that authenticity, you disrupt the feedback system that keeps your brain regulated and resilient. That's the invisible cost of compulsive niceness. From the outside, niceness and kindness might look similar. Gentle tone, cooperative behavior, a smile. But inside the brain, they activate entirely different systems. Kindness involves executive control. It's a choice. Niceness is a reactive impulse born from early conditioning and fear of conflict. When niceness is driven by fear, your amygdala flags disagreement as danger. You enter a low-grade flight, freeze state, or worse, the fawn response. You overagree. You laugh when you don't want to. You nod when your instinct says, no. That's not kindness. It's survival mode. And each time you perform from that fearful place, you weaken the brain's circuitry responsible for self-authorship. You're conditioning yourself to believe others' comfort outweighs your own truth. Eventually, you lose touch with your values because your behavior has never truly expressed them. While kindness nurtures your identity, niceness erodes it. It's a slow depletion masked as politeness. And your nervous system, incredibly smart, brutally honest, can always tell the difference. When you try to be everything to everyone, constantly adjusting yourself to appease, you're not being flexible. You're betraying your biology. Your brain wasn't built to handle universal approval. It evolved to pursue purpose, to adapt under pressure, to lead. If you're constantly managing how others perceive you, your mind becomes overloaded. At a neural level, every time you think, will they like me? You redirect focus away from your inner compass and toward a chaotic, shifting external map. The brain begins to treat social approval as a survival need. This lights up the default mode network. The brain's self-referential, ruminative system. You start overanalyzing everything: your words, your tone, your facial expression. That noise buries the real signal. Instead of using your prefrontal cortex for strategic thinking or creativity, it's consumed by fear scanning. You turn ordinary interactions into threat zones. Your nervous system enters a constant sympathetic response. Reduced heart rate variability, poor sleep, slow recovery. Your thoughts become scattered because your brain is prioritizing pleasing over processing. This isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous. The longer you stay in that state, the more disconnected you become from intrinsic motivation. You can no longer hear your inner voice. You stop moving toward what matters. You start living reactively, not intentionally. All of this stems from unsustainable instinct, the drive to be liked by everyone. Here's what's true. Your brain was never meant to monitor approval. It was built to track truth, alignment, and execution. A major misconception, especially among people pleasers, is that growth comes from keeping peace and staying comfortable. But the science of neuroplasticity proves the opposite. The brain rewires in the presence of challenge, discomfort with purpose. When you say no and feel anxiety rise, that isn't a signal to retreat. It's a sign of nervous system adaptation. You're interrupting a deeply ingrained pattern: appease, submit, self-silence. That interruption, that moment of tension, is the foundation of change. It's called error detection, and it tells the braining something new is happening. If you can stay in that discomfort without collapsing into guilt or fear, you form a new neural pathway. That's how lasting change happens. not through affirmations, but through courageous choices made under pressure. When you tolerate social tension to stay in alignment with your truth, your brain releases acetylcholine and dopamine, neuromodulators that tag the experience as important. Your mind says, "This matters. Encode this." That's identity formation at the neural level. Those who stay in their comfort zone, who seek lickability over truth, stunt their brain's capacity for growth. Their stress responses become repetitive and shallow. But those who embrace discomfort by setting boundaries, facing hard conversations, and risking disapproval, they develop metacognitive resilience. They gain the rare power to observe their inner world without being ruled by it. That is true nervous system strength. So remember the awkwardness, the tension, the confrontation you fear. That's not the enemy. It's the exact material your brain needs to become wiser, stronger, and more grounded. Growth doesn't arise from being nice. It emerges from having integrity in the face of pressure. Every time you agree to something that goes against your core, your goals, your values, your capacity, you're not just being polite. You're fragmenting your focus. From a neurological perspective, attention is a limited resource governed by your prefrontal cortex, supported by the locus coeruleus norepinephrine system. When you spend your energy managing everyone's emotions and perceptions, you scatter your focus across countless trivial concerns. This leads to mental fatigue, not from hard work, but from constantly shifting identities to meet others' expectations. That's how burnout happens. Not from doing too much, but from chronically investing energy into what drains you and has no real payoff. Dopamine, the brain's reward and motivation chemical, is context dependent. It surges when you chase what aligns with your deeper purpose. But if you're acting just to be liked, dopamine output plateaus. That's why people pleasers often feel empty even after doing the right thing. They weren't chasing purpose. They were avoiding discomfort. And the brain knows, eventually, this pattern desensitizes your reward system. Your drive, your creativity, your resilience. They don't vanish because they're faulty. They shut down because they're depleted. So if you feel constantly exhausted, unfocused, unmotivated, it might not be a discipline problem. It might be the mental debt you've accumulated by saying, yes, too often. Your mind can't function optimally when it's scattered by obligation. It needs direction. It needs internal congruence. And it needs you to stop mistaking approval for purpose